Mhm. So I'm Isabella from Brazil. I'm organized with Brigadas Populares, which is Popular Brigade, and Urban Resistant, which is a network. We are like sewing in the continent in South America.
Which cities in Brazil in particular?
I live in Belo Horizonte. It's like a 6 million people city.
Okay, but the network works in other cities also?
Yes, well, we used to have the network, the front of movements in a national scale. We were contesting the way social movements were too co-opted by the institutions. So we wanted to build a different kind of front, more confrontative, and also building alternatives outside of this strict relation to the state. Now we are getting to know more and sharing with experiences all over Latin America. So we have contacts in Argentina with Frente Darío Santillan, with Ucamal from Bolivia, Frente de los Pueblos and Red de Saber de Diversidad from Colombia, and we are trying to make the network larger, broader.
And so what are the specific kinds of activities that you do?
Yeah.
Or which the movement for occupation and so on?
We try to construct in daily life basis the struggle and alternatives. So we work with incarcerated people, imprisoned people and families. We work with street sellers, and most important, we work with land occupations of land and buildings that are empty, to solve out the enormous problem we have in Brazil, which is the people who have no house to live. We call it roofless. Roofless, yes.
And maybe a little on the specific case of Isadora that you were, yeah?
Yes, Isadora began 5 years ago, when there were huge manifestations in Brazil, very fluid and multitudinary manifestations that used to have many components. One of the most interesting components was the urban component. We were denouncing the mobility model in the cities that makes tickets, like bus tickets, so expensive they are very excluded. Within that, we also discussed housing issues, and in July, we occupied the city hall. Yes, and the mayor had to give a message in the television, which was, no, I will not evict people anymore in my government. So that made some people have courage to do this occupation of a space that was planned to be a Luxus condominium or a World Cup village. And they say, no, that's our land, we are going to live here. And about 8,000 families came along to resist and build communities in these places. When we occupy, in general, we do it in a organized and local basis power way. So we do the urban planning, we start to value some local knowledges. So for example, agroecology is used both to grow food and also to think urbanization without the state, because the state is the enemy. In another basis, we start to plan the space with women to see how common places can fortify women's network and this kind of things. Isadora has passed through many repression. We had many problems with the state, with paramilitary power, and they tried very seriously to evict Isadora many times. One of these times they almost did it, but thanks to the network Isadora created in the city, in the country, in the continent, and also thanks to the local power, like democracy, we could face it and overcome. And now we are struggling to be recognized as neighborhoods in the city, and also fighting for urbanization, but in different bases. We don't want the community to be removed and buildings, like standardized buildings, to be done in the place. What we really want is the houses, the way of life people have built there are recognized, and also that urbanization process there is more sustainable, more equal. And,
is there any sign that the government will recognize places like this, occupied places?
Well, government doesn't want to recognize, but we are always like occupying, making struggles. Isadora is now known in the whole country, so they are very pressured to recognize. This month, the mayors sent a law to be voted that recognize Isadora as a place that in the future will be regularized.
Okay. Yeah.
This document, it's very important because it means that public government it's bringing it to the urban plans, to the city urban plans, Isadora. But we know that this process will be very difficult, and there are many contradictions that we are now having to face. Some things that governments like to do is to dissolve this local power and to impose their own politics on urbanization. We had this all over Brazil, where slums were urbanized, but in a very non-participative ways. So we are continuing struggling to maintain. Yes, to maintain Isadora as it is, a place constituted by the struggle and the alternatives. We know that they still want to evict Isadora, not only because the price of the... No, it's okay. We know they still want to evict Isadora, not only because of the price the land has, because it is very expensive. There are billions of dollars, but overall, because it is a place of resistance. Isadora is not just fighting for housing or urbanization. Isadora people are engaged to go to the streets against the coup we have in Brazil, for a different prisonal system. So it is pretty much involved in many struggles and many resistances in the whole city, and that is an important thing. You cannot look just to yourself, and Isadora is part of a network where we say mexeu com uma, mexeu com todas. When you mess up with someone, you mess up with all. And that's the network we are trying to create. Yes.
Excellent. And do you, one of the big problems with poorer colonies in cities across the world is that the rich look at them and like they're areas of crime and dirt and filth and all of that. As part of your struggle, do you think the sort of middle class attitude towards Isadora has changed?
Yes, definitely. Not the hegemonic But we built, for example, a big network involving cultural movements. So when when Isadora was about to be evicted, we didn't do only marches and blocking streets. What we did was a big cultural festival involving artists from the country and artists from Isadora. So we are always trying to show that it's not just a space of absence. It's a space rich of many contexts. And that's very important to show people what is definitely happening in the cities. Middle class people and overall high class people in Brazil, they live in such a state of segregation. They don't realize how state can be repressive with these communities. Once the land is illegal and the community is illegal, state blocks public services and policies to get into the community. But the military force, it's every day there and acts as the people that live there are just enemies. We had a lot of murders, assassination and problems like that. We understand that now the war on drugs that is like taking over the country is a strategy to make a war on the poor people, how it is built. So it's something that we are trying to show as well in this struggle.
Anything else you want to add?
Well, yes, I think one thing we discussed in the meeting, in the working group, was the relation between rural and urban. Isadora was a large green area, and before that it was a quilombos, which are black resistance communities that was built from people by people that were escaping from slavery. So, for example, in Isadora territory, the occupations are just in a 25% of the whole territory. In this territory, we have a quilombola community, and all these communities are facing the opportunity to think in a different way the relation they are going to build with that environment that is in there. So I think one important thing that Isadora is doing is to make the gardens of the people very productive, to construct full sovereignty, also ecological networks, and so far and so on. We are also doing relations with the landless movements and other movements, and try to build a network of food consumption and distribution, so we can have our people eating better food, like not only rich people that can afford organic and these kind of things. So that's very important. And also the way the space is shaped. We are trying, Isadora people are trying to preserve the how do you say that? Water. Yes. The
water channels.
The water channels, the trees, the birds, the species. We know urbanization process is changing the place, but to experience how city can grow without so many destruction, it's something very important. And regarding these people that live, are ruthless people, they came from the rural area. They have a lot of knowledge to do urbanization on different bases, and I think that's a big potential.
Seems like quite an amazing example of resistance and alternatives both together. No?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.